All right, here we are again, Facebook Live, coming to you from Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. R. Christian Minson here, your catalyst for transformation and evolution. I am here today to tell you, if you're tuning into the recording, just know there's about 4 or 5 minutes worth of preliminary welcomes before content starts. So just move ahead about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and you'll get right into it. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Karen. Let's get this party started. Let's get people here. Lovely. This is the second week. Rythmia has been open since we came back from break. Already filling up. Next week and the week after. But this week is pretty much sold out, I believe. Next week is definitely sold out. The week after that. This coming week was Taita Juanito, one of our, the highest shaman that comes around here. Hey, Dave. Thanks, Tammy. Hi there. If you're joining on, say hi in the chat bar. Tell me where you're from. Let's see, what else? Then Panache Desai is coming next week. Not next week, but the week after that. And that's sold out as well. That's going to be fun. Kimberly and Foster Gamble are on the horizon. I think that's right after Panache. It might be 1 week in between there, but Shelly Albers, yeah, my good friend Shelly Albers is on. Excellent. Keep it coming. Say hi. Kyra, hi from Oregon. Excellent. And Jamie. Kyra and Jamie. All right. 2 and 1. Sherry. Hello, glad you're back. North Carolina in the house. Excellent. Denise, hey, from Texas, beautiful. And everyone, Natalie, here from Miami, Florida. I think as far as people coming to Rythmia, California is number 1 on the list. Then it's a tie, I think, between Florida and Canada. Canada as a whole and Florida. What's next? We got Texas in there. We have New York, New Jersey area, Colorado, I think Washington State. So this is the specs the other day. So places get being contention for the state. We got people from all over the world too. Australians coming to the States. We have a fair amount of New Zealanders, Europeans. We have a Latvian from Latvia this week. We've had Kyrgyzstan, Russia, you name it. So a very international crowd here. So I'm just waiting for some numbers to build up while we talk today about the nature of abundance. Natalie, hello everyone. In Florida, Denise, we already got you. There's Sean. Hey there, Sean. Welcome back. It's been a while. Shelley says hi. America from Finland. Yes, forgot we have a large Finnish contingency that's coming here. Ingela, Maiku, and Ingela are some of our guest speakers who come every year, and they're from Finland. They tend to bring hey, Maiku's on. Hey there. Glad to see you. So type in when you guys will be here if you're getting this, so they know. So all of our Finnish fans know too. Shelley, San Diego. Yeah, that's where I'm from originally. Tom, hey Tom, joining me every week just about. Jennifer Sedini, hey, welcome. Jennifer was here recently as one of the guests with the Women's Week, Majesty Women's Week that we have, that we now started. That was the first one just a couple months ago, and we're planning to have another one. I think it's in March. If anybody knows that, type in and say so. I think we're planning to do these twice a year, March and August or something. All right, so we're at the time when it's time to go. We're talking today about the nature of abundance. Welcome officially. My name's Christian Minson. I'm the resident director of the breathwork program here. So I always give my classes with a little bit of breathwork wisdom thrown in. I've been a breathwork facilitator and trainer for the last 12 years, traveled all over the world, sharing the techniques of breathwork for emotional integration, physical betterment, and of course, spiritual deep connection. I am your catalyst for transformation and evolution, which is the name of the game, and which is definitely the name of the game right here at Rythmia. I'm a speaker, an author. I don't have the book here today, but we do have the book by Gerard Powell, Shit the Moon Said. If you haven't read this yet, try it out. It'll give you a little bit of background on how this crazy place got started, the story of Jerry. And let's just see who's coming in. Michael Lee from Fort Worth. Sean became a grandmother just recently. Awesome. Yay. Congratulations. And Natalie. Seems that the video is jumping and repeating on my end. Yeah, apologies if that's the case. The internet connection here is not the greatest. We've been having rainy weather. This is essentially the rainiest, a beautiful part of the year. I love the rain. It just rained and rained last night. It was really beautiful, especially for those in ceremony. But that does tend to affect our internet a little bit. So sorry if that is the case for you. All right, so I was saying, after introducing myself, we're talking about the nature of abundance. And I thought, abundance is a topic that we hear about a lot. I think maybe today we've got a little bit of a different viewpoint on it. So this gives you a chance to see abundance from a different perspective. And, abundance really is our divine birthright. We were born into an abundant universe, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be abundant. And in fact, hopefully through the perspective today, you'll realize how abundant you actually are. This is driving me crazy. Sorry, my collar, microphone's getting driving me down there. Yeah. So as well, why we're talking about this topic today is maybe you'll realize some misperceptions or some ways that you're not realizing how abundance really is already in your life, and you can start to become more grateful and more attracting of that abundance. Toronto, Diane's coming in. Hello. So, what is abundance really? I was thinking about this. The nature of abundance is the abundance of nature. Nature itself is abundance. Have you ever looked around? I mean, again, in this rainy season here, we've got an abundance of rain, water, abundance of air, which is the number one thing we need to survive. Next thing we need is water, and we've got an abundance of that on this planet. Food. Food grows everywhere. I mean, it grows on trees. It grows in the ground. We have an abundance of that. Abundance of materials to make our lives better. And this is all around us. We're born into this. And so, how we get away from recognizing that we already are abundant is really the crux of our dysfunction, that we stop realizing who we truly are, the birthright that we've been given, and then we start living in this fantasy world that's saying we aren't abundant, that we don't have all we need. Abundance is really, from my perspective, a flow, right? So life itself is a flow, and This is that's why this works so well with breath, because our breath is a flow. It's a giving and receiving. If you think about it from this perspective, an abundance of breath is not a hoarding. Breathe in without breathing out. And there's only so much you can take in, and if you really think about it, that's not actually good for you. You hold on to this breath. If you don't ever let it go, you're going to use up all the oxygen that's in that breath, and you're going to run out. So abundance requires, in this particular example of breath, it requires us to let go. And I'd say this is really an analogy or a holographic representation of greater dimensions of life. That as we talk about abundance, about receiving abundance, there has to be an equal exchange, an equal release, an equal giving and receiving. And it's actually in the giving that you open up the space for more abundance. So with the breath, take a nice full breath in, and you're feeling good, but the only way to take more in, to get another round of good, fresh, oxygenated breath, is to let it out, to give your breath away so that you can bring more in. So a giving and receiving. Let's see what's John. Hey, Christian, coming in 2 weeks. Excellent. Again, beautiful. Jessica, hello. Where are you coming from, Jessica? So, flow. Not about hoarding, but this works well with the analogy of breath too. That abundance really isn't about hoarding or having a bunch in stockpile. True abundance is having what you need when you need it. All right, so a lot of us think if we had $1 million, we'd be abundant. But if you really look at, what comes with that, and we'll get into that in a minute, but to say that, if you only need $100 that week and you have $100, you are abundant. You've got the resources you need when you need them. And of course, then the next week goes by and you need $200. But in whatever way you acquire the $200, you are abundant. You don't have to have this reserve necessarily in place in order to feel like abundance is yours. It's yours if you have what you need in the moments you need it. This is significant, I think, when I really look back on life, and I invite you to look back on your lives and see when there was a time that you didn't have what you really needed. And then if you identify that what I think most of us will see is that we really had what we needed at the time we needed it. It came when we needed it most. If you do notice something that wasn't there, just lost my train of thought on that one. Then you may see that you were looking at it from this perspective, that I wanted something more than I actually needed, and try that on for size. Abundance, from another perspective, is really on a continuum. On the continuum, there's too little, and on the other side of the continuum, there's too much. So abundance really isn't about having that too much. Again, it's really living in balance, finding that place between too little and too much. What I've seen in life over and over again, of course, we know too little is painful. Too little seems to interrupt the flow of our lives. If you don't have enough, then more is necessary. But the part that gets overlooked a lot is that too much this side of the spectrum. Too much can also be equally disadvantageous to you. And it comes in, it can mess with your life. I think when I'm thinking too much, too little, I think of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This soup is too cold. This soup is too hot. This soup is just right. This bed is too hard. This bed is too soft. This bed is just right. So there is such a thing as too much, and it doesn't, and it doesn't improve the quality of our lives. So the quality of our lives is really to bring things in balance. And when we're talking about abundance and balance, think about that if we're abundant in one area of our life, one facet of our lives, but the other areas are lacking, we don't really have true abundance. So in other words, there's the physical or material abundance of life, but then we have mental abundance, emotional or heartfelt abundance, and ultimately spiritual abundance. So let's say you've got a lot of material abundance, but you're lacking in love, or you're lacking in spiritual connection, you're not going to feel very abundant. And in fact, this, back to the book, Shit the Moon Said, that's essentially Jerry's story. He sold a company for $94 million, had 30 cars, 5 houses, more girlfriends than he could handle. All of this still didn't bring him happiness. He actually was fairly miserable because his life was, he had too much materially, but he had too little when it came to either true emotional, heartfelt connection or true spiritual connection. And, thank goodness he went off into the Costa Rican jungle and had a plant medicine experience that totally shifted his life, not only for himself, but now gave him the vision of Rythmia, which is now manifested and is truly a place of abundance. This is a place where people are finding that balance. So really, a lot of people who come here do have material abundance, but they're lacking in that mental equilibrium. They're lacking in that heart space of equilibrium. They're lacking in that spiritual abundance, and they find it here. They find it here through the program. Let's just check in. Sherry saying, the universe always provided for me in one way or another. I didn't realize it until I started becoming aware of my place in the universe. Now I act as if my need is already met. And that's a beautiful way to act because, if we want to get super esoteric here for a second, time is an unreality. Everything exists simultaneously. And so, in essence, your need already is met. A need that we have now that supposedly will be met in the future. When we step out of that time-space continuum, we see that everything already is, and that need has been met. So when we can really relax in that pays the dividends in our lives, because then we stop worrying about the things that we don't have yet. We stop worrying about if it's ever going to come. We just and as if it's all that. Even if it takes some time to bring to us, the real essence of this, and hopefully you get this, is that you've been living calmly and peacefully. You're not concerned about acquiring that thing or when's it going to come or whatever it is, but you live in this relaxed state of already knowing. You're not worried about it. You're not constantly fretting, when is this going to come? How am I going to bring the universe or my finances or whatever into alignment so that I can receive this thing? And so even if it takes some time to come, your life along the way is infinitely better lived, right? It's more relaxed, more happy, more joyous in its expectation, rather than, worried, consumed, overworking to try to make things happen, getting it all, stressing yourself out to get all the ducks in a row, and then hoping, and when then your expected results don't happen, fretting about that until finally it does happen at some point. So hopefully that is something that you understand on a deeper level. Sherry, I'm coming in March. I don't know how the money will come, but it is showing up. Beautiful. And that's that's a true testament to faith. And on that note, I'm not saying to just sit back on your couch and say, hey, the money is going to come, or I'm going to be able to do what I want, but I'm just going to sit and watch TV until it happens, right? The universe requires our active participation. When we initiate our own energy to make something happen, then the universe meets us halfway, and usually meets us before we even get to halfway. So the universe is usually doing most of the work, but it requires us to start with. And this isn't counter to what I just said, because you can still be working towards acquiring whatever it is you feel you don't have yet. But remember, it's with a different attitude. It's with a more calm, relaxed, enjoying attitude that, this is already mine. I'm just going through the motions to bring it to me, versus, how's this going to happen? What do I got to do? Oh no, I got to worry about this. So balancing the body, mind, heart, and soul, and too much of one is not good. Here's another thing about abundance. Really, if you're really getting into it, if you're really asking for abundance in life, and this maybe is people on the topic of abundance think, I want more abundance in my life, and what we have is a specific idea of what kind of abundance. Like this, I want this specific thing, and we disregard all the rest. But abundance doesn't operate in a vacuum. So in essence, when we have abundance in our lives, we usually have an abundance of everything. In other words, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all present for us. It's not like, you get a windfall and you get $1 million, but then also you got the worry and headache of that $1 million. You got to protect it. You got to make sure it's invested well. You got to know how to spend it properly so it doesn't just evaporate. So abundance isn't just in one little category or one little space. It is an energy, an energetic flow, as we said earlier, and that activates all aspects of life. Now, when you understand this, you really see that if you take a higher level view, there really is no such thing as good, bad, or ugly, right? Life itself is a neutral experience. Life, let's take, I mentioned that there's a lot of rain here lately, right? So rain is good. We need the rain. In fact, in this part of Costa Rica, if you can imagine, we have a dry season that if we don't get enough rain, we run out of water in the dry season. So there's an abundance of rain, and that's a good thing. However, you look outside and where the lowlands are, it becomes flooded, and there's issues and things like that. So the idea of abundance just being this this one specific aspect of life where you get it all, but you don't have to worry about all the consequences or the residual energies that come with that thing is a falsehood. The abundance is the entirety of this energetic move to receive. And that, but the good news is, and using that word to say that there really is no good, bad, or ugly. That, and so you accept what comes along with that abundance and recognize that it's all a blessing on some level. Abundance, the engine of abundance really is our desire too. We, what you desire puts energy out into the universe to then come to you. One spiritual master I studied for a while said that whatever you desire has to come to you. So, if you really want something, you will get it. It will come to you. Now, the tricky part there is that what you want will come to you. How it comes to you is another story. It rarely, if ever, comes to you the way that you think it's going to come to you. So what you want ultimately arrives, but how you got there, how it came to you, may be more convoluted than you were willing to go through in order to get that thing. Sort of a grim example. I was trying to think of good examples here, but I read once upon a time Edgar Allan Poe. He was sort of a dark author, and his stories were always tinged with some darkness. And there was one story called The Monkey's Paw, and supposedly this monkey's paw talisman would grant you 3 wishes, and this family had gotten one, and they had wished for an abundance of money, right? And their son went off to work that day. He worked in a factory, and that evening they got a knock on the door, and there was a representative from the factory saying, their son had been killed in a freak factory accident, but here was this sum of money, in recompense for, for the accident. And that money, the sum of money, was exactly what they had made their first wish on. So, it was like, all right, so you got the money, but, at what consequence, right? And then it went on that the mother was beside herself, and so with her next wish, she wished for her son back. And of course it didn't happen right away. He'd been buried already and all this stuff. And so hours later, they get a knock on the door, and it's like midnight, middle of the night. And so this is the climax of the story. The father realizes what's gone on, that essentially the son has come back, but likely he's, he dug himself up from the grave, and he's heading there to the door. And so with the last wish of the talisman, he wishes for him to be gone, and the mother opens the door, and there's nothing there. And that, of course, that's the end of the story. Now, it's kind of a scary story. I hope it doesn't spook anybody out, but it's a good illustration of how, be careful what you wish for, and know that what you're getting is not always, or how you're going to get it is not just a straight, clear, I want $1 million, I'm going to get it. And you think that, you can just arrive at having that without a lot of peripheral stuff happening. So, and we see this all the time here at Rythmia. So rarely, never, is it so morbid as the monkey's paw tale, but people all the time have desires, have intentions here, and how they arrive at those invariably, most people get it. We have a 92.6 something success rate with our miracle success rate right now, which means that 92 out of 100 people that come here are getting what they came for. They're leaving satisfied. However, the journey along the way is something where they have to learn how to let go of the expectation of how that's going to arrive. And sometimes with the plant medicine or even with the breath work, you got to go through a cleansing period. You got to go through a rough patch where you're releasing, you're purging, you're letting go of old garbage in order to make space for this new abundance to arrive. So again, the good news is that you ultimately do get what you expect. And the more that you can let go of expecting it to come to you in a certain way, generally the easier a time you're going to have with that whole thing. So Sherry's saying 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, 100% faith. Yep, that's a good formula. Mary is saying, hi from Wyoming. This concept has been part of my life for the last 3 years. It's helped me to get through a very rough time with grace and patience. So grateful for the reinforcement from Rythmia. 40 days to go. All right, coming back in 40 days? Awesome. And you want to say more about what concepts specifically there, Mary, as I didn't catch your comment until I was finished talking about many different aspects of this whole abundance thing. So so there we go. So abundance, nature itself, a flowing, a giving and receiving. It's not about hoarding and having a lot. It's about having what you need when you need it. And just think, if you always have what you need when you need it, that's the truest freedom, because you don't have to worry about all of your savings in the stock market. And as I understand, the stock market took a tumble in this last number of days. So those with abundance now are fearing for their abundance in that sense. It's a balance of all the aspects of life: physical abundance, mental abundance, emotional abundance, and ultimately spiritual abundance. We want to keep all those things in balance. The abundance is the totality of experience, so the good, bad, and the ugly, but we know that as we rise above those preconceived notions, there really is no good, bad, and ugly, and so we can really accept more favorably all of the abundance that comes to us. And remember that it's propelled by your desire, that you get what you wish for. Just know that it rarely, in fact, probably never, but never say never, so once in a while, but rarely comes the way you expect it to come. Sherry's saying, Jerry says we can vibrate towards the things we want. How do we do this? We can vibrate towards the things we want. Well, I would say that I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. My perception of this would be much like someone was commenting earlier, acting as if it's already there. So you're acting as if your life partner is already with you. You're acting as if the money and the funds are already there to get you to Rythmia. You're acting as if you've got your dream employment opportunity. And acting as if, some people say, go as far as if you get a big bed, for instance, for the partner example, that you don't spread out in the whole bed for yourself, because you got to act as if you're sharing that bed. So you sleep on one side and you leave that part there for your partner. You might even buy little gifts or have little things around the house for this person. It's it is the vibrational frequency of your intention coupled with action. Action itself is a vibration that starts to, resonate at a frequency that attracts the frequency you're looking for. So, if somebody wants a beautiful partner, beautiful woman or a handsome man, you might attract that vibration, but then you get your beautiful or handsome partner, but they're disgusting human beings. Like, you didn't vibrate the frequency of them being wholesome or them being faithful or them being not cheats and liars and all that kind of stuff. So, this is often the situation people get themselves into, as we would come into relationship with somebody who exhibits an aspect of what we wanted. We desired here's the whole, the entirety argument in, we're looking for an abundance of beauty. We get that, but with that abundance of beauty comes, the abundance of lying and the abundance of cheating and the abundance of laziness, whatever. I'm not saying it has to be that way, but what I'm saying is, as we're looking to vibrate the frequency of what we're wanting to attract, then you got to take the whole into account. So not only do you want the beauty, but you want the wholesomeness, you want the faithfulness, you want the somebody who can take care of themselves, kind of thing. And as you vibrate with that frequency, that starts to come into your sphere. You start to attract that more. So hopefully that kind of answers that a little bit more. Meg McGill showed up. Hi, Meg. How you doing? And I appreciate these questions. If anybody else has questions, you're more than willing to. I'm more than willing to answer to the best of my ability. So we get into abundance, and that attraction thing, sort of, how do we vibrate towards the things that we want? One of the ways we can do this is sort of something I wanted to talk about too. And this takes, I mentioned this in the beginning, but this takes a framework of understanding that there's a holographic nature to the universe, that which means that any, a hologram is this image that if you had a hologram that was created on a plate, say a hologram of a sunset, it's a sunset image. If you broke that plate in two, the interesting thing about a hologram is the image now isn't half and half, but each piece of the image is completely whole. So you've got one sunset scenario here, you've got the same sunset scenario here. It didn't divide in half, it doubled. You could break those down into half again, and even break them down into, so you got 16 pieces of the original hologram. Each of those 16 pieces would contain the entire image. Right? So how this applies to life is that any piece of our life gives us information about the greater context of our lives. And so when we're, the one aspect that I really use, the one tool that I use to help realize a lot of things about life is our breath, our breathing. So when you work with your breathing and you start to see how where your breath is dysfunctional, you start to work with functional techniques of breathing and such, you start to see how that affects, that has rippling effects on the entirety of your life. So if we're looking to stimulate more abundance in life, we can look at how we're working with abundance with breathing. And the breathing techniques that we practice here at Rythmia really work on bringing an abundant amount of oxygen, abundant amount of breath in with each breath we take. What I've noticed in all my years of being a breath worker is that Most of us, just on average, the vast majority of people breathe at about 20% of their capacity or less. So just think, if you had $100, but you only took 20 to spend, you basically got 80. It's like you ignore the fact that you still got 80 other dollars. Like you don't realize it's in the drawer or whatever. So you're really operating with only $20, even though you have 100. So it's the same way with our breathing. We have the capacity for an abundant amount of energy in our life. Oxygen is our number one energy source. It's the energy that brings us to life and helps us to navigate life. If we're only using 20% of our capacity, there's no wonder why we're tired, why you're stressed, why you feel like life's a chore, things are difficult to do, because you're not, you've left, it's like trying to pay for a $40 dinner with, what you perceive as only $20 that you have. If you'd open the drawer and see that you still had $80 more, it'd be easy to pay for that meal. But now you gotta, now you've only got 20 in your hand. You have to finagle, maybe wash dishes for 4 hours to pay off your meal. So all that I'm using is metaphors or analogies to try to get the point across. But you see, so as we learn to breathe abundantly, we're actually vibrationally, we're vibrating towards more abundance in our lives. As we receive more of life, we're actually inviting life into us. And remember, we're not inviting part of life in and holding another part back. We're inviting it all in, which we might say, again, is the good, bad, and the ugly. But by the time you really hopefully understand now that there isn't this good, bad, and ugly, that life itself is a neutral, abundant experience. And as we can either participate in it and therefore be a player with this abundance, or we can hold ourselves apart from that, from life. And that's like, breathing shallow. Breathing at 20% means that we're not engaging with 80% of life. We're keeping life at bay. We're keeping the abundance of life at an arm's distance. And then, then we complain why we don't have enough, or why we feel energetically depleted, or why life isn't a little more abundant. So by practicing these breathing techniques, coming here to Rythmia, and you can even do breathing for 5 minutes. I just did one last week, the three keys to I forget the title, but 3 keys to something. And but it's basically how to breathe, how to do this breathwork technique. And you can watch that one and practice it if you don't know what I'm talking about at this point. So again, how we vibrate towards those things we want is one of the best ways is to breathe into them, to breathe abundantly and set up the holographic resonance that's going to draw more abundance into your life. So, any other questions out there? Very good explanation. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate anybody's comments and feedback to that degree. And so I think I'm coming to the end of my what I have to say today. If anybody wants to ask any other questions, but just know once again that hopefully you see that abundance really isn't about having or stockpiling, but always having what you need when you need it. And if you really think about if you could shift your perspective on that, likely you could see that the past month, the past year, the past 10 years of your life, you've likely been living an abundant life. You just haven't been recognizing it. And the way to recognize it is to be grateful. If you can express some kind of gratitude for your experience, for your day, for what you have, that is an acknowledgement that abundance is present in your life. And I've found that the more I'm grateful, even for what seems like not a lot, the more that tends to stimulate more in your life. So that kind of also answers that question in how do we vibrate towards what we want. We be grateful for the little bit that we perceive we do have, or grateful for whatever it is we do have, and that sets us up to receive more. Think about it. Have you ever given something to somebody and they were really appreciative and thankful for it? What does that set up inside of you? You want to give them more, right? It's like, here, have more. Have the keys to my car. Go out and have a great time. But if you give something to somebody and they're not grateful, or they're even like, hey, how come I only got this much? Where's the rest, or whatever? What does that set up inside you? Right? It's like, I'm not going to give any more to you. I'm going to avoid you. It's like, if you can't be grateful for what you got, why should I give you more? So again, in the holographic nature of the universe, our consciousness is just reflecting the consciousness of the whole, of God, if you will. And it's not like God is a being or anything that's trying to punish us. But it is the same sense. If you're grateful for what the universe brings to you, you've set up this vibratory resonance that will draw more in. The universe, quote unquote, wants to give you more. And if you're not grateful for what the universe gives you, you set up an energetic frequency that seems to thwart any more coming to you. And so recognize that and just be grateful for what you have, and see how that ends up playing out as far as stimulating more abundance to come in your life. So with that, let's see. Sherry, thank you very much. You answered my question very well. Looking forward to your next stop. Thank you for this one. Excellent. Beautiful. Jan gave me a thumbs up. Meg gave me a heart this. Beautiful. So perfect. You guys are wonderful. It's great having you with me. This to me feels like abundance for me. Being able to share concepts and understandings that I've garnered in my 12 years as a breath worker. I didn't mention in the beginning that I was a monk for 10 years as well. So a lot of meditation, a lot of study, a lot of spiritual focus gave me some perspectives that perhaps are a little different than your average ones out there. So hopefully you've learned something today. And if you want to carry on the conversation with me personally, I invite you to friend me on Facebook, R Christian Minson, the letter R Christian Minson. I just ask that if you do send me a friend request, that you also accompany that with a message that says you saw me on Facebook Live and you wanted to keep the connection alive. Otherwise, I will likely not get around to accepting your friend request. If you do it with that message, you're guaranteed the acceptance of your friend request there. So with that, thank you all. Namaste. Let me say it one more time. Whoops. Michelle says thank you. Linda says excellent. Thanks. Beautiful. Thank you all. Namaste. See you next time here on Rythmia Live.